is the software of the nervous system that runs all the hardware of the muscles, and we can optimize that, then there's virtually no limit. Your genetic potential is just a starting point to what you can actually accomplish. And as I mentioned before, the velocity of knowledge around here is breakneck, and I love it because there's so much to learn. And the more you learn, the more you can share it and serve other people. So it goes from being a situation where I was only training one client an hour to being able to share information with dozens of practitioners who are going to impact their hundreds of patients and clients, which is so rewarding, and that's why we do it.
I'm Garrett Salpeter, and I believe that the most powerful and transformative way to help people recover from pain and injury, heal from trauma, and reach their highest levels of fitness and performance is to focus on the nervous system. In this podcast, we'll share knowledge from the frontiers of neuroscience and inspirational stories of how applying that knowledge has empowered people from all walks of life to heal, adapt, and grow. Welcome to the Undercurrent podcast. I'm joined today by my colleague, a member of Team NeuFit, Clay Edgin. And Clay works with us here in Austin, Texas. And in addition to being part of our team, he is a very accomplished strongman coach and competitor. He's been top 5 in the world, even better, he'll tell us, but in the world in arm lifting, which is a grip strength competition, and is also very accomplished, has won and placed in various powerlifting meets. And I'm excited to talk with you today, Clay, about applications for the Newbie, particularly and especially in the strength sports world. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is used to be on the other side of the camera, and it's a little more nerve-wracking, honestly, to be on this side of it. But you've always keeping it so cool, so how would I know?
That's right. Clay also does, among the many hats you wear here, you've been producing and recording these episodes, at least when we're doing them in person. You produce them anyway. But, so can you tell us a little bit about your strength sports career, pre-NeuFit and since we've been working together, but just kind of tell us, outside of NeuFit, what you've done in that realm.
Sure. I got into strength sports in 2003 through strongman. When I was in high school and out of high school, I was well over 400 pounds. I was watching World's Strongest Man with my dad, and he says, you're a big guy, you could do those things, you're as big as these guys. And he goes, you walk on the same earth that these guys do, why couldn't you do it? And I thought, that's a silly thing, but also I thought about it some more, and then why couldn't I do it?
Yeah.
A body I wasn't necessarily proud of, could move heavy weights and be strong like these guys were. And so I got into the gym after my first child was born. I got a book called Dinosaur Training, all about heavy sandbags and kegs and thick-handled dumbbells and old-time strongman, and it was a diversion from the traditional 3 sets of 8 you would go and do in the gym and just do curls or bench press all the time. It was like squat heavy, deadlift heavy, push trucks, and that kind of thing really stuck with me. I enjoyed it a lot. Fast forward, 18 years, I've done 86 competitions in powerlifting, strongman, Moss wrestling, arm lifting, Highland Games, and Olympic weightlifting in 6 different countries, 3 national championships, coached at, this will be my 6th world championship in powerlifting I'll be coaching at, qualified athletes for strongman nationals, world weightlifting championships. I've coached at 3 CrossFit games, and the kind of journey of feeling empowered in your own body and getting it into a place where you feel more comfortable with it and expressing kind of strength with it has been such a phenomenal journey. And I couldn't imagine my life without heavy weights or without, the way it feels, how good it feels to be strong.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. And your dad was right.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Really cool. So with that background, can you talk about your first experience with the Newbie, with yourself and a few of the clients, and kind of how we get started working together?
Yeah. I was having some pretty bad elbow pain in my right elbow. I was competing in the arm lifting world championships, which were in St. Petersburg, Russia. It was my first time going. It's just a sport about grip strength where you're lifting weights, but the weights are, they're 2.5-inch handles you would grab and lift, or the barbell is rectangular and you have to pinch grip it to lift it, or close those heavy duty hand grippers, the Captains of Crush grippers, closed for time. And I qualified being one of the first Americans to go, and the elbow pain was so bad I couldn't extend my arm all the way. It was just keeping me up at night, and I had to do something, and I knew if I didn't do anything it was just going to get worse. Not fixing it doesn't fix it. I kept repeating that to myself. That's what got me in here. And the guy at the gym said, you got to go to NeuFit, see this guy with the crazy hair named Steve. He'll fix you up. They're going to electrocute you. It's going to be great. And his delivery of the pitch wasn't that great, but I trusted that this guy would fix me. And I walk in the first time, and Steve very carefully explained to me that he wasn't going to stop turning up the dial until what was wrong with my elbow was fixed. In his very Steve way.
Oh man, we miss Steve.
Yeah. And I bought a 5-pack of sessions, and after the fourth session, well, I'll say after the first session, we found 13 hot spots through the body mapping process. They were on my lats, my hamstrings, my feet, everywhere. He did the manual activations, and we did the re-education stuff with the Newbie. And by that fourth session, there were no more hot spots, and the elbow pain was gone. I was able to fully extend it. I was hitting personal records in the gym every week leading up to my World Championships. I went to Russia, and I placed in the top 3 in 4 of the 6 events I was competing in, which was great because the next year it got enough attention to where we were able to take a team of like 17 people from the U.S. to compete. I became the team captain. And after that experience with the Newbie and feeling how good it felt to be strong and capable again, I knew I had to do anything to be associated with NeuFit. So while I was coaching powerlifting clients and they would get banged up once in a while, I'd refer them in here and they would do a few sessions, feel great. I had one client who came in for a session. He and I had worked out the morning prior. We did like a 7 a.m. session. He came to see Steve at noon the next day, and he called me on the way home, and he goes, "Do you have time for a session today? I feel really good. I want to go hit a heavy deadlift and heavy squat." I said, "Sure, I had nothing going on." So I go to the gym and meet him, and he pulls, so to set the stage, he's been lifting for 7 or 8 years now. He's not a rookie anymore. He's about $185, already squatting in the low 3s and deadlifting
so
in the
he
high 3s.
weighs 185 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We get into the workout, and he hits like a 30-pound squat PR. He's like 355 now on the squat. Very little warm-up ready. He's like, "I'm ready." He says, "I feel primed and energized and charged," and all these magical words that are just, inspiring him. He must have had a really good session. Then we hit a deadlift, 1 rep max. It was close to the end of his cycle for strength training anyways. He pulls, I believe, a 50 or 40-pound deadlift PR. His first time over 400 pounds. His first 405 deadlift, so 4 45-pound plates on the bar, which is a great milestone. Every time you hit another plate on the bar, it's another milestone, and you cheer yourself. And
especially for his body weight.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he had been stuck, with hip pain, back pain, shoulder pain, and it was getting worse every week. And my toolbox had been exhausted trying to help him doing all the simple band extensions and stretch this and let me massage that. I don't know what I'm doing with the massage, but I'll do it anyways. So getting him in here and getting him fixed that quickly was phenomenal. Another lifter I had chronically tight psoas that led to a back injury, deadlifting 185. His all-time best was 425, which he hadn't hit that in years. He'd always been plagued by back issues. He came in for 4 or 5 sessions. We trained together throughout that time. He progressed to a 475 deadlift over the 3 months we were together. So he went from being sub 400 pound deadlifter to almost 500 pound deadlifter, only working out with me once a week. And I'd like to say it was my magical coaching, but really it was what's better than magic, it's science, is what's improving him. Got his psoas released and his everything else working like it's supposed to. He's been pain-free ever since. I talked to him on the regular, and he's really enjoyed it. So when the chance came to work here, I jumped at it. I was have a pretty busy personal training business at a gym across town, and I had some of those clients work with other trainers, so I could answer the phones here. Anything to get in the door with NeuFit. Let me just use the machine. I want to figure it out. I want to make it work for me, and still referring clients in on occasion. And then it's just been, I always say the velocity of learning around here is so fast. It's as fast as the lightning coming out of the electrodes. You can learn here as fast as you want to, and you can train your body so much faster with the Newbie that I just don't want to work out without it anymore. I'm a little bit spoiled, to be honest, and if I can work out with heavier loads of my muscles and feel better afterwards without my joints being beat up, why wouldn't I do that every time?
Amen to that. So since you mentioned, wanting to get your foot in the door and starting here, I have to share a quick anecdote of how that came to pass, because we were hiring someone, hiring for the front desk here in Austin, and we put out some, I don't know, not an ad, put out something on social media like, hey, if you're interested in applying, stuff like that, and we got this note from you that was amazing. So Bree's like, hey, come look. My wife, our COO, got this message and said, hey, come look at this. And I read it and I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to hire this guy. So anyone, I don't know if you're listening to this, if you own a clinic or if you're ever applying to work somewhere as in anything, this is good. So a good personalized letter. So Clay wrote to us and said that, he's an accomplished powerlifter. He loves NeuFit, and he now wants to be the world's strongest admin.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And that caught our attention. So it was clever. It was personalized. It was beautiful. Great lesson in there for anyone who's trying to apply for any job anywhere. Personalize the cover letter.
You're getting some career coaching today on the episode as well.
It stood out at the top of the pile. It was really, really wonderful. So let's talk a little bit. You shared some great experiences yourself and your coaching clients. Now you've come over. Thankfully, we were able to get you full time to join Team NeuFit and come over here with us, doing a variety of things. In terms of your own training, one of the interesting things that you've done is work on increasing the range of motion and the abduction, or the ability to spread your hand wider. So can you talk about, one, why that's important in grip strength, and two, how you did it and kind of what your experiences was along the way, specifically in your hand?
Yeah, sure. I kind of wonder first why I've never thought of this before. You stretch everywhere else. If you're getting into a squat position, you want to be able to hit the range of motion in a squat where you can produce meaningful output. So why then wouldn't I have thought years ago that I need to be able to increase the spread or the range of motion of my hands to be able to recruit more force? It wasn't that complicated. I ended up putting the electrodes, kind of on the front and the back of the hand and at the elbow, and crisscrossing the currents. So a positive on my palm, a negative from that same channel on my elbow, and then the other channel 3, the back of the hand and the elbow as well, and just running some frequencies, some of the specific frequencies for inflammation and on the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments and the fascia. And within 20 minutes, I can share the photo as well as on my social media. My hand spread had increased probably 2 inches, being able to spread my hand from this position out a little wider into this position. And then that's important because for a guy that has to reach around thick-handled barbells or rectangular barbells or pick up heavy weights that are awkwardly shaped, being able to recruit more surface area on those implements is the name of the game. I don't have exceptionally large hands for a guy who's 6'5", so I need every advantage I can. And of course, training multiple times a week with this stuff, your hands can get to be hurting after a while, and it's not arthritis, but it certainly isn't comfortable after lifting with these weights. There's occasions where you will separate tendon pulleys, or just the bones crack in new ways they didn't used to last week, and I'm able to systematically and routinely use the Newbie to both help with recovery from those workouts and improve the workouts with the Newbie on at the same time.
Awesome. So then that's a good segue into the next thing that I think would be really interesting for our listeners here. So can you talk more about how you'd incorporate the Newbie? So beyond the hand there. Well, actually, first of all, before we move on, so you did that more of a microcurrent session, increase that range of motion. Did that additional range of motion last, and if so, for how long?
Yeah, it still stayed. This was maybe 2 weeks ago.
Awesome.
I still feel that full range.
Awesome.
And it's noticeable between my left and my right. I didn't do the right. I did do the left for kind of a control, and it's been noticeable, and the pain has been diminished as well. I did finish with a hand bath at 500 hertz, which is a great, after almost every grip workout, I'll do a hand bath just to get inflammation, blood flow handled, and it's just a good reset, at the end of the workout.
Awesome.
If you're ready to supercharge your practice, listen to this. Garrett and Team NeuFit have just released a new online course entitled Introduction to the NeuFit Method. In this detailed 8-hour course, you'll gain mastery of the fundamental techniques in our practice, including muscle testing and activations, nerve glides, and joint articulations. You'll also get introduced to our patented direct current stimulation device, the Newbie, an incredible machine that's empowered professionals just like you to help their patients heal, adapt, and grow faster than they ever thought possible. To learn more, go to www.neu.fit/learn. And now back to the show.
Awesome. Fabulous. Yeah, it's so important for all of us, the health of our hands. There's so many nerves there. We need our hands to be healthy. For you though, because your performance is so directly linked, it's awesome that motivates you to spend more time on them than the average person. But it's awesome. It's a great example. If it can help your hands with everything you're pushing at them, it can help everybody.
Yeah, any ache and pain I've ever had from fingertips to elbows, hand bath will knock most of that out, and then any specific stretching, I can do some static stretching on the individual fingers or the wrist while doing the hand bath or under the current.
Yeah.
And it resets everything in my lower arms, and it stays for weeks or even months in a single session, which I know I can only do because I've done so many sessions now of Newbie work that when it gets reset, it sticks a little bit longer. I don't have to do it daily.
Yeah. Yeah, fabulous. You get that cumulative effect as the body adapts structurally and neurologically.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk now about how your training has changed. And you started to speak to this a little bit. How your training has changed in terms of what your week looks like or training cycle looks like now that you're incorporating the Newbie, volume, frequency of training, what you're actually doing during the sessions. How does that look now?
I'm doing so much less and getting so much more out of training these days. And it sounds so counterintuitive because for the majority of my strength career, I was taught you just pound your body into the ground with heavy weights, and when your sport is done with you, it quits you and moves on to the next person, and you have whatever maladies are in your body now. And that mindset got me a torn tricep and a knee scope. It's pretty chronic back pain for a while. But now using the Newbie, I did kind of an experiment last year around this time, from August to November. I took the Newbie to the gym. I would do about 45 minutes. I would do 3 days a week, and afterwards I would do a master reset. So about an hour total between everything. And in those 3 months, changing nothing else in my diet or anything else, I gained to 28 pounds of lean body mass, which I didn't think was possible being a guy who's been lifting for almost 20 years and was already 300 pounds.
And you're not taking steroids, you're not getting up and eating in the middle of the night, you're not doing anything crazy outside.
No, I go to the T clinic every Saturday. They give me a shot of what I'm supposed to have, and I eat the same food and the same hydration levels.
And that was the same before this.
It's the same. I haven't changed it over a year.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was a testament. I started seeing changes in my body, and then one day I walked by the mirror and I was like, "Holy moly! I'm looking like kind of massive these days. I'm excited about this." So I come in, do my testing again, and it's 28 pounds different. It's 270 pounds of lean body mass at 6'5" and about 20% body fat. And I thought, wow, these are decent numbers. That I'm proud of being this big, and it just ties into my, pride in self for being a large person in the world and not fitting in just a typical mold of what like an athletic person looks like. So that was a nice reinforcement again.
And to show that it's possible to build muscle and reduce body fat at the same time.
Yeah. A
lot of times people think, if I'm going to get bigger, I'm going to have to gain fat along with my muscle, and that's not the case.
No. And the training has been, and since then the training has been even more abbreviated. I do 2 days a week, upper body and a lower body day. The weights are significantly lighter than what I would use without the Newbie, probably 50% of what I would normally use, and the Newbie fills in the rest of the gap of what I could use those muscles for. So I'll do maybe dumbbell front raises with 30 pounds and the Newbie on my shoulders when I would normally use 60 to 70s for the same amount of sets and reps. 2 sets to near failure, and get out of there in about 35 to 45 minutes. It's really efficient. And then a master reset at the end of the night. It feels very repeatable, very comfortable. My joints feel amazing because I'm not beating them up with heavy lifts anymore. But the strength has stayed there, which has been really cool. That strength, you don't forget how to be strong. It's always there.
So when we talked, when early on when we started working together, you asked me my thoughts on how to incorporate the Newbie, and I told you, and let's have a little bit of an accountability session. Tell me if this held true or not, and what your experience has been. I said something to the effect of, you can use the Newbie for your training, and it's gonna, like you just described, you can use less weight, do less volume, have the Newbie on, and keep improving in pretty much every area in terms of strength and movement, except that you will from time to time have to still have a session every so often where you do put the heavy bar on your back, because the one thing the Newbie won't duplicate is the load on your joints and those specific mechanoreceptors. And you will, if you do want to continue, if you're a team sport athlete and you're not touching weights for competition, that what we're describing with the Newbie can be totally not only adequate but can be amazing and even better. But if you do want to compete in strength sports, I believe that you would from time to time have to see those heavy weights, have to feel them, so that like for example, if you didn't touch if you didn't touch anything above 300 pounds for 6 months and you went to a meet and you're trying to squat 600 pounds, your muscles might be able to do it, but the mechanoreceptors on your spine might say, oh shit, pardon my language, but we haven't felt that weight in a long time. And so they might trigger that perception of threat, which would cause your brain to shut down some of the muscles, and you might not be able to make a lift that everything else could. Like, we're only as strong as our weakest link. So how have you navigated that, and what have you found in terms of having these more efficient workouts, using less weight generally? How often have you found that you need to, if at all, touch those heavier weights in order to maintain or improve those high levels of strength?
You were pretty close, you're pretty spot on actually with your recommendation. I think you said use heavy weights once every week or every 10 days to stimulate those mechanoreceptors. I was doing that without the Newbie, but then I found that the heavier weights were making my joints ache a little more. So I was using the Newbie and trying to work into heavier weights, something sub-maximal but maybe 80% or what might feel like an 8 out of 10 intensity. And that for me became the sweet spot of where I would do all my compound lifts. So as heavy as I could do with good form, maybe an 8 out of 10 intensity plus the stimulation of the Newbie, and then to strip that weight away and just do hypertrophy after that. And then it became easily repeatable to lift heavy weights consistently. It was like a switch that was always on. It was great because then I had such small exposure to those heavier weights that might have caused damage. But I was supported by the Newbie's muscle activation during those lifts, so it felt like a safe thing to do, and which gave me more confidence to do it more often. So I think getting exposed to heavier weights when your goal is to lift heavier weights is important and mandatory. And as you said, that my first couple sessions, going from doing Newbie with just body weight and light weights to going into doing heavy good mornings and heavier squats with no Newbie was pretty shocking, because I get the weight on my back and think, wow, this is only 60% of my max. I feel like I'm shaking in the wind, I'm so unstable. But then the next week, adding 30 or 40 pounds more, 30 or 40 pounds more, and then putting the Newbie on and feeling like it's all kind of coming together. These heavier weights for these compound movements, limited exposure to that, gets the mechanoreceptors firing. And the episode we did with Sam Buckner, where he was saying something to the effect of only needing about 30% of your potential, sort of, your max on a weight, I think is the conversation, to stimulate hypertrophy and strength gains.
So just for anyone who's heard that, Sam Buckner is the PhD exercise physiology professor at the University of South Florida, who just completed the first study showing that the Newbie can create hypertrophy without any external load. He came on and talked about the science of hypertrophy. We'll have him back on to talk about study results, but he's got a few studies going on down there. So just for context, please continue.
Yeah. So being able to load the joints safely with the support of muscles that maybe were inactive from improper movement patterns in the past has been the biggest difference. Small exposure to those heavier weights and compound movements, stripping the weight away, and just re-educating the nervous system to fire the muscles harder and harder every week causes them to grow. Doing leg extensions with 60 pounds and feeling like it's 300 pounds is great for my knees and for my quads, and it's fantastic.
And this is, how long have you been doing this? Just so people, if anyone's listening to this and saying like, oh yeah, well he just did it for a month, but he still had his strength. It's like if he did this for too long, he might lose his strength or something. Like, how long have you really been doing this? Where the rubber meets the road? What's your experience been?
I've been doing the compound lifts less frequently these days. Because of COVID. I haven't really competed in powerlifting. I did the nationals a few weeks ago, and then a full powerlifting meet a year and a half prior. But I've been exposing myself to these heavier weights probably once every week, once every 2 weeks consistently, when the strength hasn't gone anywhere.
So for about a year and a half, you've been doing it for about 18 months.
I'd say about a year, pretty consistently.
About a year, okay.
Yeah. And it's been great because I can walk in anytime to the gym, and my max these days is around 600 pounds for a deadlift. And it was that when I was 35, and I'm 40 now. And I would like to see it go up, but if I can just kind of hang on to 600 pounds or kind of reduce the atrophy over time by keeping the Newbie on and keep lifting in those ranges with no pain. I mean, I feel better now at 40 than I ever did at 35 or 30 when I was even stronger maximally. So I'm pretty happy with, being able to stay within, a pretty tight, high percentage of what I was able to do lifetime on these big lifts and still and grow muscle and feel better. The biggest change for me in training with the Newbie has been in the realms of grip strength, because you said there are so many nerves in the hands and the potential to pad up different muscles to work different events. I've seen an increase in the hypertrophy in my hands, which is kind of a funny thing to think about. They've gotten thicker over the last year. This one's like a catcher's mitt now. It's like, I don't know what happened. But now, not only do I require less warm-up to get into heavier weights at competition, I always just use the phrase, I'm kind of neuro-ready. I'm just ready to step in and lift a heavier weight. Not a lot of warm-up because I'm always kind of, the switch is flipped on all the time. And it's nice to have trained that over months, using lighter weights with the Newbie, working into heavier things, and to step in anytime I need to, and I'll do feats of strength, I'll rip decks of cards or bend nails. I don't have to spend 10 minutes for stretching my wrists or stretching my fingers to make it happen. You unwrap the deck and you tear it in half, and that's it, just like you do.
All that day's work.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anyone who is listening to this, if you're a clinician, if you have a Newbie or not yet, don't. If you're working with anyone who's a strength athlete or who's concerned about, how the Newbie may or may not be able to help them, and if they'd be able to maintain their strength or have any questions in this realm, I'd encourage you to share this episode with them, because hearing from Clay, who's accomplished what he has and had these experiences that he's had, I think is a perfect example of exactly how this can help an athlete like yourself when you implement things consistently, do it the right way, think nervous system first, focus more on that activation, movement patterning, and give your body that foundation of good health, good movement that is more sustainable, that can allow you to not only do it once but to maintain it with less pain, with less time in the gym, with all that stuff. So,
the thing I love about it the most is the longevity aspect of what you can do with your body now in the sport using the Newbie. If you peak at 33 or 35 and then have to experience a rather dismal descent back into mediocrity from where you were so strong and wonderful, the Newbie has, for me, kept me a little higher than that and slowed that descent and staved off the kind of the identity crisis of like, I used to be strong, who am I anymore? And if I was training people and I had clients who were athletes or even average Joes, getting them out of pain, chronic pain from their lifestyles or from their sport, keeping them in the gym with you, being able to treat their nervous system or train their nervous system, keeps them engaged with you longer, to stay with you, and they'll see better results faster. There's just not a bad side to using the Newbie as an athlete or a trainer. And everybody I talk to on some of these calls, impart that to them and say, you will keep your clients longer, keep them healthier longer. The baseline is you want to be healthier when you're going to the gym and you find a trainer, even if you want to perform at a high level, and which usually requires a sacrifice of some strength. The Newbie is, as I mentioned, when it was supporting my muscles in a heavy squat, the Newbie is a way of supporting your nervous system when you're pushing for those upper echelons of performance.
Absolutely. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, when we talk about different applications, if we're in a physical therapy clinic, someone's seeking treatment, that's one thing. If we're in the gym and a coach is using it or something like that, oftentimes that will either be with a therapist or they'll be using it under the supervision of someone with a medical credential or stuff like that. I'll mention that just in case anyone has that question in their mind as they're listening to it. But it's really, really awesome. I mean, we've loved being able to work with you for the last couple of years, and you've really been able to kind of specialize within this area of NeuFit and support the NeuFit community to help in the performance and strength aspect and hypertrophy too. And I just am really grateful for the contribution you've made and how you've been able to support people who are using the Newbie in that avenue. And thanks for coming on the show and sharing that with everybody.
I'm so grateful to you guys for the opportunity to fast track my learning about the human body and realizing that.
Kind of specialize within this area of NeuFit and support the NeuFit community to help in the performance and strength aspect and hypertrophy too. And I just am really grateful for the contribution you've made and how you've been able to support people who are using the Newbie in that avenue. And thanks for coming on the show and sharing that with everybody.
I'm so grateful to you guys for the opportunity to fast track my learning about the human body and realizing that.
I love it. I can't think of a better note on which to end here. So thank you so much for joining us, Clay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of the Undercurrent Podcast.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Undercurrent Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date as we release future episodes.